Into it. Joining me now is Sky News contributor Katherine Deves and Spectator columnist Rebecca Weiser. And it's terrific to have you both on the program. Now, in the lead up to Australia Day, a Queensland MP, the member for Bowman, Henry Pike, he's drafted legislation for the federal parliament which would actually enshrine Australia Day as January 26 and rule that it could only be changed by a national plebiscite. Now, Rebecca, once and for all, Henry Pike could be onto the solution to stop this annual Australia Day debate.
Yes, I think this is a wonderful idea, and I think it's a real test for the Labor Party. Now, we know the Labor Party has said that they don't want to change the date, or all they want to focus on is the voice. Well, if they mean that, they're happy to lock in 2050, they're happy to lock in lots of other dates. Let's lock in the 26th of January, Australia Day. I think it's a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, I'm not confident Labor are going to pass that test, but I think this is one we need to keep an eye on. If it doesn't get up this time, let's hope it gets up. Let's hope it gets brought up again.
Yeah, well done, Henry Pike. We also learned this week how many of the Melbourne City Councils apparently still appear content to hold the traditional citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day, with only a handful opting to actually change the date. I mean, Katherine, this is from the nation's wokest city, so obviously they realise it's a popular day.
Absolutely, Gary. Thanks for having me on the show. I mean, this just goes to show that with respect to Australia Day, all this conversation about changing the date might not be in line with community expectations. When we see these councils deciding to honour the day, it's reflective of maybe what the people want, and particularly down in Melbourne, which is very woke. It just goes to show that people want to celebrate.
Yeah, indeed. I think some of those councils just clean up the graffiti, do Australia Day on Australia Day. It's important to a lot of people. Anyway, let's talk about Jeremy Clarkson, the Maverick UK TV host. He's famous, of course, for hosting Top Gun, and, well, he looks likely to be dumped by the streamer Amazon Prime over his infamous comments against Meghan Markle. I mean, Rebecca, no doubt Clarkson's comment needed to have had a good editor. It was in bad taste. He's now apologised twice, though. I mean, is this the end for Jeremy Clarkson?
Well, look, I hope not. He's got a wonderful following, and people like him, of course, because, you know, he says, he says things on this occasion that I certainly don't think, but he resonates with people, and I think people feel so frustrated by the sort of politically correct police that monitor every word you say. I think an apology should mean something. He's apologised twice, and I really think it shows the value of a good editor, as someone who speaks, you know, sometimes people put things down and they haven't reflected on how that's going to come across. Yeah. So, but I think it'd be a very sad day if he's cancelled.
Yeah, no doubt. Katherine, I guess cancel culture is in action. People like to be offended on behalf of others, but Clarkson was pretty rude.
I agree, and Clarkson needs to realise the zeitgeist really isn't in his favour, and I think that what he said, you know, to call for Meghan to have scorn heaped upon her, to be publicly humiliated, and giving such, you know, a graphic description of what he wanted to happen to her, even if he was reflecting what happened in Game of Thrones. I actually do think it went a bit too far. You know, I've been the recipient of having vile abuse heaped on me, and I know he has apologised, but personally, I actually think he went a bit too far with that, and I'm not surprised he's lost his job, but I have no doubt that he'll pop up somewhere else. As Rebecca said, he has a big following, and I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for him.
Let's talk to Melbourne and the Australian Open Tennis Championship into full swing. As usual, there seems to be more drama off the court than on. A minor incident yesterday led organisers to ban the Russian and Belarusian flags from the tournament. It seems a pretty tough stance, but it's against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I mean, Rebecca, what do you make of the rule? Is it fair?
Well, look, I think the most important thing is that everybody should be able to enjoy the tennis, and I think Australians and tennis lovers hate it when the sport is politicised and all of these things get in the way. I think Tennis Australia, you know, their call to say no flags, I think was a good way to kind of get through a difficult issue, and the players seem to have accepted it, the fans seem to accept it, so I can certainly accept it. And I think really these sports people and sport in general is a way of trying to break down the horrors, you know, show that okay, people can be angry about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but these tennis players aren't responsible, and some of them have spoken out forcefully against that invasion.
You never ever played a stunt, somebody else's stunt. So let's talk about what's happened in the UK, where a major political brawl is brewing between the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon over gender reforms. Now, Sunak has taken a dramatic step to block the Scottish Parliament's radical gender reforms, which could make it easier for transgender teens to legally change their recognised sex. It's the first time the UK has used these powers under Section 35 to disallow Scottish legislation. Now, Katherine, I know you follow this space closely. Rishi Sunak, he's taken a dramatic step here, saying the move would have chilling effects on the safety of women-only spaces across the UK. I guess you'd have to agree.
I absolutely agree. Scotland is being plunged into a constitutional crisis over this. The legislation that First Minister Sturgeon, that she has tabled and that has been voted through, it is not in line with community expectations in Scotland. People have not been consulted. Women have not been consulted. She has ignored the concerns of women. She has ignored the concerns of parents. She's rushed this legislation. She's pushed it through, and Rishi Sunak is saying that it is actually in conflict with the existing UK Equality Act. This is unprecedented. This has never happened before. It might even bring down the Scottish National Party. And it's actually happening here in Queensland right now. The Queensland Attorney General and the Palaszczuk government are trying to push through similar legislation in Queensland. They've done this by stealth over the Christmas period. There are women pushing back, and we are being told that we are just a fringe minority, that our concerns are transphobic. But what this legislation will mean that men can go in and with a small fee and a form, they can change their legal sex and they can get access to any space where women are, where vulnerable children are. They can access our resources, our scholarships, our awards, our sports, and we have no recourse to say no. We do not consent to men in these spaces. We do not consent to men taking over women's rights, and this is happening right now in Queensland. So I absolutely commend Rishi Sunak. I think he's doing the right thing, and I really hope the women of Scotland are protected by what the UK Tories are doing.
Yeah, well said. Good on you, Katherine. Great to have you on the program. Rebecca, thank you also for your time. Thanks for being on